Sociology. We are on day 2 of cognitive dissonance. Yesterday, we did this. We talked about the basics of cognitive dissonance as well as the main experiment by Leon Festinger in the 1950s on this $1, $20 experiment that was really complicated, but which was basically that cognitive dissonance, as a recap, is any two ideas that you have to agree with each other. If they don't, you have dissonance. Like in this case, and it's not going to work to tell this the first time, but if you remember the story, this guy did this really boring thing, and then he was told, you should tell the next person in line that it was either fun or, well, that it was fun for either $1 or $20. If you told the next person in line that it was fun for $1 or $20, after you told them that it was fun, you lied to them, then you were asked, how fun did you actually think it was? You'd think that the $20 person would say it was more fun and the $1 person would say it was less fun. But it's actually the opposite, and that's because of cognitive dissonance. If you told a lie for $1, that's not enough money to tell a lie. That's dissonant. You told this lie, but you only got paid $1. Dissonant. And the way to justify that subconsciously in your mind is by somehow convincing yourself, it actually wasn't that bad. I only did it for $1. I would have done it for free. It was okay. But if you told a lie for $20, you're fully justified in your lie, and that's okay. You told a lie, it's $20. It was a lie. I'm cool with that. So you say, no, I lied to him. I got $20 for the lie. I'm cool. And it was not fun. It was boring. I turned pegs. I'm going to move myself over to the other side of the screen here. I've dropped this sheet exactly in your classroom, so you should be able to take a look at it while I'm talking about it. And let's go through it here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 types of cognitive dissonance. We're going to talk about another one tomorrow as well, but so that makes a total of 8. But cognitive dissonance in general, it says that any two attitudes or behaviors we hold must be consistent with one another, or else there is dissonance. And if there is, you have to justify it. So the first example, my job is boring, but I get paid a lot. That's sort of like the $1, $20 thing, where you get paid a lot to do something, and that makes it totally okay. So that's not dissonant. You don't have to justify that. But if your job is boring and you don't get paid very much, you'd think it would be the opposite. That is dissonant. And then you can justify it somehow, saying like, yeah, but I love my job, or I help people, I'm making a difference, whatever. Your girlfriend dumped you, and you're an awesome person. That is dissonant, and you have to fix it somehow, and one way you can fix it is by saying, I'm better than her anyway, I need to focus on my studies, whatever. I got an A on the test, I'm smart. That's not dissonant, you don't need to justify it. But if you fail the test and you believe you're smart, you have to say you're a bad test taker, or the teacher's bad, or something like that. This is from one of the famous Aesop's fables, which sometimes we do in class, but we didn't do that on this video. So there's an Aesop's fable where the fox really wanted grapes, but they were too high up in a branch, and he couldn't reach them, so he said they must have been sour. So let's go over the specific types of cognitive dissonance. Starting with effort justification. Effort justification, and I'll give you some examples also with these. Effort justification is working for something causes you to like it more. And the example given on the page is boot camp in the arms, arm E, builds camaraderie and dedication to the military. I went through 6 months of hard work to join this group. Must be worth it. Because obviously, the purpose of the army is to train you for combat. And that's the primary function of boot camp. But a very, very important second function of boot camp is to kind of make you buy in to the concept of the army. If you just join the army and that's it, you're just in it, you don't have as much kind of skin in the game. But having to go through however many months of boot camp, 6 months in this example anyway, a boot camp makes you have to put some effort in, and then that then would be dissonant if you had to work really hard for 6 months to be in the army, and then you later think like, army's okay. It's not that great. That's dissonant. You had to work really, really hard for something that's not that great. Well, you have to justify that somehow, subconsciously. So, can you change the fact that you had to work really hard for 6 months? No, that's in the past. But you can change how you feel about it. So you kind of change it to like, yeah, the army is great. It's fantastic. I'm so glad I did it. That you can change, and you kind of, your mind does this without you even knowing it. At least theoretically, overjustification should also cause you to like something like a car that your parents make you work to pay for. Or if you have to work, even McGinnis, just off the top of my head, something like work grant, where you have to actually work to be able to be enrolled in McGinnis. You have to do something to kind of earn your McGinnis. That, at least according to overjustification, should make you value McGinnis more. Things like that. Counterattitudinal advocacy. Counterattitudinal advocacy is if you have to do something that is counter to what you believe, you're more likely to agree with the position that you're forced to take. For instance, so the example written on the piece of paper here is you hold a certain position on a political issue. Your government teacher makes you write a paper arguing the opposite viewpoint. After you write the paper, you're more likely to support their viewpoint. So we'll take private versus socialized medicine. It doesn't matter what the issue is, but if you are against socialized medicine and your debate teacher at McGinnis makes you argue for socialized medicine, just the sheer point of doing that, of getting it out of your mouth to say things that are pro-socialized medicine, is going to make you actually be more socialized medicine. Same thing if you just picking a name of one of the people that's in politics right now. If you don't like Biden, but someone pays you to hand out Biden yard signs or sell Biden yard signs or something like that, you have to do something for the campaign. That's going to make you like Biden more, just because you did that, even though nothing changed except that you have to do something that you previously didn't agree with. Post-decision dissonance. Post-decision dissonance is if you make a decision that you cannot change, you tend to like the decision that you made. And that is because if you have a choice between option 1 and option 2, and you choose option 2, it's similar to the boot camp thing. If you then don't really like option 2 in reality, in the future, that's dissonant. But you can't change the fact that you bought option 2. You can change what you feel about it. So you tend to really like option 2. So here, you choose between 2 cars. Yeah, it'd be like if you're choosing between a Ford and a Chevy truck, and you end up choosing the Ford. And before this, you didn't. It was like a truck's a truck. Who cares? But after you bought the Ford, then you're a Ford person instead of a Chevy person. OU-OSU is a perfect example. Well, I was about to say no one cares about OU-OSU, but actually most people do. But if you apply to both OU and OSU and you get into one, you go to that one, or you get into both, you choose one, whatever, you end up at one of them. Obviously, you're going to be a big advocate for that school over the other school, and that's post-decision dissonance. Several years ago, I made one of the most important decisions in my life. I had to choose a blender. And of the top-end residential blenders, there's kind of 2 choices. There's Vitamix or Blendtec. They work differently. Blendtec has a more powerful motor and blunt blades. Vitamix still has a powerful motor, less powerful, and sharp blades. Vitamix sells a lot more units. Blendtec has some pretty cool YouTube videos, which I'm ashamed to say that played into any part of my decision. But anyway, I ended up going Blendtec. It's the least popular choice, but it has a more powerful engine. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. They're both really good blenders. But I kind of have this like pride in my Blendtec now, and I kind of judge Vitamix people. That's post-decision dissonance. After you choose a Blendtec blender, can't go back. You bought it, so you're a Blendtec person now. Overjustification effect's pretty interesting. It is that if you are paid for something, you like it less. You'll notice a lot of these are very, very counterintuitive. You would think the opposite thing would be true, and this is one of them for sure. Overjustification effect, if you're paid money for something, you like it less. If you do something for free or for cheap, you tend to like it more. And that's like if you play guitar for free with your buddies, great. That's like the best time ever. But once you start getting paid to do it, I don't know, maybe you still love it. But at least according to the overjustification effect, you risk not liking it as much. I really like landscaping. I actually like mowing my yard, non-sarcastically. I like planting things. I like hardscape. I just built a retaining wall that took me like most of last summer. I think it looks really good. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. That retaining wall, I probably put, I don't know, 90 or 100 hours working on that wall. But it looks great now. And obviously, I had to pay money to get the material. So I was not paid for that work. But it was so much fun. And if I was paid by someone, that would have been, the exact same work would have been actual work. It would have been zero fun. I would have dreaded doing it. But since I did it for myself for free, it was a ton of fun. That's the overjustification effect. If you get paid for something, you risk shifting the motivation to what's called extrinsic or external motivation from internal motivation. Internal motivation or intrinsic motivation is enjoying something for its own sake because you actually like it. Extrinsic motivation is enjoying something simply because you're getting rewarded for it. Insufficient punishment. Insufficient punishment is also a little bit counterintuitive. It says if you're punished very harshly for something, it can actually make you want to do that thing more. And if you're punished moderately, it makes you want to do it less, which again doesn't make sense. We'll go down to here's a study that I did, but let's go down to this example here. In the example like below, if you have a toy that you're playing with and your parents say you do not play with that toy, it just makes you want to play with it more. Or if there's a button and it says do not press, it of course makes you want to press the button. But if there's a moderate level of explanation or moderate punishment, it makes you be like, okay, I won't do the thing. It'd be like, well, here the second one. In most movies, if you're forbidden from dating somebody, it makes you want to date them more. Just that. If you're harshly punished for something, it makes you want to do that thing more. Self-handicapping is intentionally doing something to make it so you won't succeed to avoid cognitive dissonance. So that is like, let's go with the ACT. So the ACT, right? If you go to all these what you should do, if you go to all these study sessions and you take the ACT multiple times, but you still end up with a score that's not good enough to get into the school you want to go to, or a score that you are not happy with, that's dissonant because you tried really, really, really hard and you didn't get the score you wanted. So that's not good. And the way you have to fix that would be like, well, maybe, I don't know, you have dissonance. It's not good. You have to think maybe I'm not as smart as, or maybe I had too high expectations. Either way, it is a psychological turmoil you have to go through. But if you don't try, if you handicap yourself, then that's okay. So, and you have no dissonance. So if you only take the test once and you don't study for it, right? And then you get a bad score, you say, I didn't try. And so that is no longer dissonant. You can hold that you got a bad score and you're still smart because of the explanation of I didn't try. And so you no longer have to think that you're not smart or whatever. Because if you didn't try, then you can't really fail. The Ben Franklin effect. The Ben Franklin effect, named after a story that happened in Ben Franklin that he talked about in his autobiography, is there was a guy that didn't like Ben Franklin. So not a fan of Mr. Franklin. Ben Franklin wrote a note to this guy that the guy that didn't like him had a rare book that Ben Franklin wanted to borrow. So he said, hey, can I borrow your book? The guy says, sure. He borrowed the book. So the guy that didn't like Ben Franklin did a favor for Ben Franklin. And then he liked Ben Franklin more. It's you tend to like someone after doing a favor for them. And it's because of cognitive dissonance. So if this guy, we'll call him Larry, which is definitely not his name, but I feel like Ben and Larry goes well together. Larry. So Larry didn't like Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin said, hey, Larry, that book that's really important to you, can I borrow it? Larry says, okay. Larry now did a favor for Ben Franklin. Now he has, if he still didn't like Ben Franklin, he would have dissonance because he did a favor for this guy that he doesn't like. That doesn't make sense. So the doing the favor for this person made him actually like him more, which reduces the dissonance. Now, I'm going to have you, also on Classroom is this document. I'm going to have you go through this And on these 7, you will match the words. I think there should be 7 and 7, so it should be no overlap here. So right to the right and underneath of each of these, which word it is, and then you're going to have to come up with your own examples of 7 cognitive dissonance types. So just come up with your own unique examples that are not these. And that's it for today. Tomorrow we will talk about learned helplessness, and then the next day we will take a short quiz over all 8 of the types of cognitive dissonance, as well as cognitive dissonance in general.